Welcome, welcome. I am so excited to see all these smiling faces, particularly my students that are here. We won't talk about the extra credit. No. So welcome. I'm super excited to have you participate today in our Against All Odds, Stories of Grit and Determination. We created this speaker series specifically to amplify diverse voices that have ascended to leadership roles, both in industry as well as entrepreneurs. And so I am just excited to see this come to fruition. This is only our second session, and we are so delighted to have just amazing leaders here today. And so what I'll do is I think I'm going to bring up one of our top Neeley leaders to come and introduce our speakers. I'm going to welcome up here one of my, I can't say favorites, right? I'm not supposed to, okay. One of our top students that is one of our foremost students in accounting and finance, and he is just an all-around leader on campus. Put your hands together. Let's welcome Sean Payne.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the humble introduction, Professor Tasby. Yes, my name is Sean Payne. I'm a senior accounting and finance double major here at TCU, and it's my honor to introduce our speakers today. So I'll start with our co-creator of this speaker series and our conversation host, Mr. David Russel. So David graduated from the TCU Neeley School of Business in 2012, after which he received his Master's of Accounting from Oklahoma State University on the prestigious Ronald E. McNair Fellowship. Originally from Detroit, Michigan, he currently resides in California, where he serves as a director and head of family office services at MGO Private Wealth. Our guest speaker for today is Sekou Lewis, who is the general counsel for the Dallas Mavericks. Before being appointed in 2018, Sekou was a trainer at IMG Academy. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers, Mr. Russell and Mr. Lewis.
How you guys doing? Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Sekou, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and everyone here, the Mavericks all in attendance. So, Sekou, welcome to campus.
Appreciate you having me.
Now, you know what's funny is I wore the Mavs blue for you today, but you wore the purple for us, so appreciate that.
Yeah, when in Rome, I had to show a little support, right? But the other thing is, so purple is my mother's favorite color, and so every suit that I have, I always make sure there's a lining or a stitching of purple or something as a tribute to her, so it fits. It's like kind of like at home now, right?
I love that, because my mom is actually here too, so I feel like we both got something in common there. So I'd love to start with just getting the audience to better understand you, right? So we'll start with the name of this series is Against All Odds, Stories about Determination and Grit. How do you define grit?
That's a good question. So grit, I think a lot of people start off with like hard work, right? Perseverance. They think of like putting a lot into something. But to me, grit has to include like a setback, a fall down, a lot of adversity. Because the only way you find out what you're made of and if you have grit is if you get knocked down. And to me, that's a true testament of your character. It's not about whether you do or how many times. It's about what you do in response to that. It's about how you adjust. To me, that's what grit is. It's how you adjust to a situation, how you maintain, how you continue to persevere forward as things are thrown at you. But that's the key thing, as things are thrown at you. So grit requires all of that. It requires a belief. It requires a faith. And it requires a level of commitment to yourself and your sense of purpose.
I love that. So when you think back to kind of growing up and whatnot, tell us a little bit about what your life was like growing up when you first got something thrown at you and had to really kind of, show your grit.
Yeah, so I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Anyone from Cleveland will always say it proudly the same way I do. I'm one of 6 kids. So there were 4 girls, then me, then my younger brother. So that was the first level of grit. When you have 5 women in the house, 1 working bathroom, right? And they're all older. You got to show a little bit of determination to hold your own in that space. Then my love for basketball grew just in my own backyard. There's a Fisher-Price hoop and Michael Jordan's movie Come Fly With Me. And that was the start. But when did the setbacks kind of first occur? They kind of start off early on. So depending on the environment that you grow up in, I had a very supportive family, but outside of that, when you're young and you tell somebody, oh, I want to play in the NBA, unfortunately, there's people who will come by and say, well, do you know how many people make it to the NBA, right? They kind of try to diminish your dreams and kind of discourage you. But having the support system that I had and having the family that I had, and something honestly just inside of me, I think is just, where I get my faith from, I didn't believe in that response, and I believed in what I felt, that as long as I still could play, I had a chance. And so it started as early as like 9 years old when the first kind of challenge, when people were saying, your dream is too big. No, your dream's not too big. Your mind is too small. And so one message I will have for all the students is that your dream is not too big. If someone can't see it, that's okay as long as you can.
Okay, so you had a little pushback, like you said, around 9, 10, but that's when you really started developing that passion. When did you know, I'm good at this, and this is kind of what I want to pursue? When did that start for you?
Ooh. All right, so I always thought I was good when I was little, right? So I would play against my friends, one of my best friends at the time, Jason Fisher. We would play in his backyard, and he still remembers to this day. I used to always beat him. I didn't really remember, but I guess so. So I always thought that, I was good. I had a very keen imagination, so I just imagined myself being good, and that's what kind of drove my belief. But things started to pick up probably in 6th, 7th, and then really in 8th grade. That was a big year for me. I had a growth spurt, and then it became a time when, so I'll say this now, and so to the students it seems like, yeah, we already have it. But back then it was kind of new. So there was the ranking systems, right? When you were in high school, you'd be in the top guard in your state or the top guard, right, in the country. When I was growing up, that was just starting to develop. So mostly it was like Street and Smith, a couple magazines here and there, not much else. But it was in 8th grade. I was going into the 9th grade, so I was a little bit young for my age. I just turned maybe 14. I was 13 or 14 going into the 9th grade. And it was after one tournament. I don't know what happened and who was there, but next thing you know, there was this book, and they were like, Sekou, you're ranked in the state. And I was like, what? Why? Because I made a layup? But after that, I got excited. I was like, maybe I could really, really pursue this.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit through your high school experience? We'll get into it, obviously, but you went to some pretty good high schools. You ended up playing with someone who's pretty successful in the NBA today. He's okay. Like some people say he's okay. So talk about that, right? Like high school is really where it starts to jump off. So talk about your first year and kind of how you navigated. I'm ranked now, how that felt, right? And did you kind of go, this grit thing, I don't need that now because I'm just, I'm going to be in the NBA.
So it's actually the opposite. So the grit thing started to kick in right then and there. So I told you, I have a late birthday. It's at the end of the school year. And it was presented, again, this was uncommon at the time. It was presented at the time for me to stay back a year so I could be the same age as the rest of the students during the season. But I was determined that I could play in high school. And so the local team that I grew up in, we were good, but at this time we weren't that good. That same summer that I was getting ready to enter into the 9th grade, we ended up getting transfers. And this is being recorded. So we got transfers. So we ended up having 9 seniors on the team, which is like a lot. And then there was only one junior and 1 sophomore on the team. And then I was going into it as a freshman year. And so there were a few people who were saying, transfer, go to a different school where you can play, or stay back a year. And so that was the first challenge. I was like, well, what am I going to do? But I believed in myself, and I said, I want the challenge. And so I went to school as a freshman, and I was the only one who got invited to train with in preseason and practice with the varsity. And these guys were like 18 years old, and I had just turned 14. So for a young developing person, that's a big difference. But I was in there competing as best I could. They were better, but I was competing. And so when it came time for the team to get selected, the head coach called me into his office, and I was nervous, and he was like, well, I could put you on varsity. We can do that right now. I can put you on varsity. But I'm going to be honest with you. You won't play. So I can also put you on JV where you'll get more playing time and you can develop. And so it was a slight, because that meant in some ways I felt like I got cut, right? I didn't make the team. But at the same time, I saw that, well, I'm not going to stop. Here's like a little bit of grit. I'm just going to pivot. I'm going to maneuver. I'm going to go play JV. And in my head, I thought, I'll show him. I'll get pulled up in varsity during the season, right? I'm going to play so well. Didn't really happen so much. I played okay, but the thing was at the end of the year, I ended up getting pulled up to varsity to practice and train with the team and be a part of the team, just not dress, as we made our state run, the first one ever in school history and the first time we were ranked top 25 in the country. So that was freshman year. And then things continued on. I don't know if you want to keep going, but.
So you're now thinking, okay, were you still ranked at this point, or your ranking increasing?
As an individual?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was there, and it was increasing.
Gotcha. So it's increasing. You're like, I'm a sophomore now. All those seniors and kind of transfers have kind of gone on. Do you say to yourself, I'll kind of stay here and now I'll play varsity like I was supposed to, or did you say, maybe I'm good enough now I can go somewhere else and maybe carve my own path?
I stayed. And then ended up transferring a couple times thereafter. So that's when the journey, I would say, continued. I had to make a lot of pivots. Basketball was my first love. I used to dribble to high school with the ball. When I was freshman, my mother's a teacher. We talk a lot about mother, love her. My mother was a teacher, and she had retired for me. But she still knew a lot of people in the school. And so this is just my connection to basketball. Before school started, it'd be like 6 a.m., I would sneak into the gym because she knew the janitor, and the janitor would let me into the gym. No lights would be on, and I would just be shooting until school started. I would dribble to school back and forth. I would at night, I would place the basketball in my bed thinking that somehow now I would go closer to it because we spent more time together. Didn't work, but it's my own little process. So I was determined at some point to make it. And so I ended up transferring to multiple schools. After that, I did a stop at a school in Michigan. I did a stop at a school in Akron, Ohio. Some of you guys may know, St. Vincent, St. Mary. I did a stop down at IMG Academies in Florida. And each one of those presented their own challenges, right? You're the new kid in school. You're the new kid on the team. I'm in different cities at this point. I'm away from my family. So they all presented different challenges at that age. But I adjusted because I was determined. I was determined to continue on to pursue my dream.
So let's take a quick stop back to that St. Vincent, St. Mary's, because kind of to your point, the ranking system's kind of new back then, and the thought of people going straight from high school to the NBA was, a newer concept. So you get to this school with this guy, right, who they say maybe could go to the NBA out of high school. And to your point, you're the new person there. Obviously, it's well documented how tight that team was. How was it playing with someone who this is your love? You're with guys who they love this as well, but he's getting a little bit more attention than you. How do you fit into that situation?
It was a reality check, but it was great at the same time because it gave me exposure to things I would never had a chance to have exposure to. And I always saw the challenge. So to be around him, to be able to compete against him, and him, for you guys who don't know, is LeBron James. To be able to compete against him every day on the court, to get to learn from him, was very, very exciting for me. It was a humbling experience many times because I realized just how good he was, which is another thing about grit, right? So you're humbled sometimes. Mm-hmm. You think of yourself, and then you find out when reality hits, sometimes you may need to take a step back and get a better perspective as to where you are and what you need to do to get to where you want to be. And that experience was a lot about that because here I am reading about the guys who are in Street and Smith, reading about the guys who are the best, and then you end up playing with, alongside, and during practice against a guy who really is the best. And so you get a chance to look at yourself in the mirror and realize what you need to work on.
I won't ask who won in one-on-one back then. I'm gonna take your side though. So then you end up going to college and playing basketball. And at some point during your college career, are you still thinking, maybe I'll go professional, maybe I'll switch and do something else? How are you thinking through that kind of as you get towards the end of your college career?
So there's another transition, another part of the grit, right? So basketball wasn't working out for me in college the way I envisioned it. I was getting playing time, but not the playing time I wanted. I had a role, but not the role I wanted. And as any student athletes in here know, eventually there's a sunset on your career. If you're not continue to produce, if you're not successful, it's going to come to an end at some point. And so I saw the end coming unless I did something that changed. And I think a lot of things happen for a reason that you don't always know. I got injured. I tore my meniscus. It was fine. Tore my meniscus, so I had surgery, so I had to sit out for a while. And it was at that moment that I first started taking school seriously, and I ended up getting straight A's. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. I got straight A's. And similar during that time, a year later, my grandfather passed away. And so this was a big pivotal moment in my life because basketball is now starting to take a different relationship in my life because I see that, what I wanted to pursue may not come to fruition anymore. And now I have to figure out what am I going to do next. So I have to figure out how to pivot, how to get back up after I got knocked down because my dreams were a little bit deflated, right? And so a big part that changed it was my grandfather's passing because at his funeral I found out who he was and the impact he had on the community in Cleveland. And at that point, that was the first time that other than Malcolm X, Huey Newton, Tupac, and Jay-Z, that was the first time I had a new mentor or a new person to look up to. And what made him so special was his education. And that's when I decided that was when things really started to change, making that transition from basketball to what's next.
So was your grandfather a lawyer then? Because that's an interesting pivot going from playing basketball to, let me go read books for 3 years.
Yeah. An interesting fact a lot of people don't know about my family, and I don't really speak on it too much, is that on my mother's side, I come from a long history of educated professionals. So my great-grandfather was a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor. My mother went to college. And so education was very big on her side of the family. My father's side, different story. But on my mother's side. So it was a transition, but I felt like I could do it because he did it, he being my grandfather. So he was the motivating factor to go back and to kind of get my education. But he was a really cool person too. And he embodied a lot of the things that I appreciate about athletes because he had his own swagger, he had his own, I'm not chip on the shoulder, but he had his own grit, right? Because it was at a time when black people weren't afforded any opportunities. I mean, it was segregation. I'll give you a quick story about his grit, which I embodied. And this is one thing I don't really tell many people. But he applied to 2 schools. He applied to Harvard and he applied to Yale. And he got into Yale. This is back a long time ago, like 1930, 1940, long time ago. He got into Harvard and got into Yale. But Yale told him that he couldn't come to school. He said he can come to school, but he can't stay on campus because Negroes weren't allowed to stay on campus. And so he basically said, screw you, I'm going to go make my own way. So he ended up going to Harvard and ended up becoming a very successful doctor in Cleveland. And that was the only time he faced setbacks because of that. But his determination during that time to travel through segregated South, not being able to travel because he was black, but still standing on his own too, he was the one who kind of embodied grit for me in a different way and realized that I really respect this man and I can take these same characteristics of what it takes and apply them somewhere else.
So the question I was going to ask you is how do you then, you've kind of grew up your entire life, basketball is your first love, it's kind of how you defined yourself, right? Athletes face a lot of different stereotypes. Now you're in law school and you're going to school for school, right? Talk about how you've transitioned your thinking of being an athlete to, being, a legal professional and applying the skills you learned in sports growing up to transition to being a lawyer.
That was an experience because as I described it before, it felt like a midlife crisis when I was like 25, right? I went from being ball is life to now I'm in a whole different setting, right? I'm training to be a lawyer now, going into corporate America. There's no more, locker room. There's no more like teammates. There's no more putting on the jersey. Your uniform is different. Your uniform's a suit. Your uniform's a suit and tie. Your court is now a courtroom, or it's across the negotiation table. And it was a very, very big transition. And to be honest, it was an intimidating world because the legal profession is dominated at the time and still is dominated by white men with white hair. And here I am, a young black man. There's not many women, not many people of color, not many young people. in the building, and now I have to figure out how to carve my own space. I have to redefine myself here and prove that, you know, I belong. And so what I did was I took the things that I learned back from sports. Hard work, right? How you can start off in one place, but hard work, determination, and time, you can get to somewhere else. In the media, a tribute to that, or kind of like a nod to that is, in the media guide at American University, they asked us for a quote our freshman year. And everybody had quotes all over the place. My quote was, "The tortoise still won the race." That was important to me because it didn't matter how, in my mind, it doesn't matter how I start. I'm going to keep moving one foot in the other, and I am not going to stop. You may get off the head sprint, you may relax, but I'm still going to keep marching. And no matter what, no matter how long it takes, I will get there, and I can outlast you if I have to. That type of determination was the same determination I took when transferring, or when going from playing basketball to being in the legal field. The type of conversations you have in the locker room are not what you have, well, as an attorney and not in corporate America, right? Not even just the vernacular of how we talk, right? It's just totally different. The cultures is different. And I had to change, had to transition out of that into learning almost a new language. But I went back to the basics. Okay. I picked up grammar books. I picked out how to read, how to write all over again. Like how to read faster. There was like some Princeton review had how to speed read. And so because I wanted to read faster so I could read all the cases for class, I picked up that book to try to learn how to do that. I figured as long as I worked hard, I would grow. And as long as I was growing, then I felt like I had a chance. And as long as I have a chance, you're going to see me.
So the tortoise was still moving, huh?
Tortoise is still moving.
Okay, so you get out of law school, you're starting to get into the legal field. Do you still have a love of sports at this time and thinking, hey, one day I'll be general counsel for an NBA team? Like, how did you transition from that to knowing you always, ended up where you are now?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a very good question because it's a bit all over the place. On Monday, I would have felt one way. On Tuesday, I would have felt another. On Wednesday, I would have had a different feeling. So the reason why I say that is because, when you love something, you always love it, whether it's currently in your life or in the past. If it's a true love, you still have it. For sports, for basketball, it is a true love, and it's always in me. There's also, just like in any type of love or relationships, you realize sometimes when it's time to move on. I realized it was time to move on from basketball, so I loved it a different way, right? But I still wanted to be a part of it some way. So at that point, really, it was when I was making that transition in law school and being in law, it's really just talking back to my friends about what's going on. My brother, he was in college at the time playing, so I would review his film and break it down to him and say, hey, you should have took 2 dribbles here, your angle's off this way, right, or turn your shoulder a little bit this way, and I would send it back to him. And that's how I stayed connected. I was still trying to learn about the opportunities that I could, transfer from, that I could be still practicing law and still be a part of sports. I was still learning, like, how I could do that. So in the interim, I stayed connected that way, just staying in touch with friends. And that was enough to fill my cup. There were always people around me who said, hey, you can do a lot with your law degree. You can go into the sports field. You can be an agent. You can go work for the Players Association. You can go work for the league. You can go to this. You can go to that. And I was like, yeah, it sounds good, but I don't really, know how to do it, and I don't necessarily want to be an agent. So those things kept ringing in my ear, but I just kind of stayed around through friends. And then at some point, the firm came to me and they said, we want to start a sports law practice. We want to market as a sports law practice. We know that you have some background in that. Would you be interested in vice chairing the practice group? And I said, yeah, sure. At the time, I was only an associate, and most associates don't really vice chair anything. So I thought it was a great opportunity, and I was appreciative of the opportunity that they chose me. And so that kind of started to open up some opportunities at the firm to get the type of legal work. But in all honesty, I didn't think I would be working at the Mavs. I was actually on my way to Nike before this opportunity came up. And this was right timing, the right people, and actually a young man asked me earlier today, did I ever feel like, aha, this is where I was supposed to be? I need to revisit my statement and say that was a moment actually where I realized, aha, this was where I was supposed to be.
Okay. So for those who don't know, what does a general counsel of a professional basketball team do?
What don't we do? So the way I think about my job and describe it is I am a brand manager, brand protector, and risk manager. So it involves a lot of different things. One day I'll be reviewing contracts, possibly for this great exhibit that we have at the State Fair this year that you guys should go see. Right, so it's about the construction of that. It could be I get a call from the Players Association about something that's going on with one of the players or the team. It could be an intellectual property issue related to copyrights or an alleged patent infringement. It could be something to do with employment matters. It could be sponsorship deals that we do. And so they all vary, but I look at it from a standpoint of how do I mitigate the risk that are associated with all these deals, right? But how do I also try to clear hurdles for the company to move in the way that it wants to move? And so what I do is a lot of times you're gonna see a lawyer at some point. You're gonna see me now or you're gonna see me later. I'm hoping you never see the lawyer later, right? So my job is to try to fight all the fights up front. Or what I say sometimes is, I think of my job as when you're crossing the street, I help you dodge 100% of the buses you never see coming, right? I help you get across the street without getting hit, so that hopefully the deal and the things can go smoothly. I can tell you all kinds of stories, but there's no attorney-client privilege, so I can't.
Fair enough, fair enough. So you've been in this role now for a couple of years. Talk about when you first got into the role. Again, this was kind of new for you, right? Going from being at a firm to now being in-house and helping the Mavericks kind of grow and build out their culture. Can you talk a little bit about, some of the steps that you took early to kind of, one, assert yourself to the culture and being a leader in that space and where the organization is today?
So this is my 5th season, so I've been there for 4 years. Luka and I are on the same contract. He just has a few more zeros than I do. So when I started, we were obviously coming out of transition period. And it was funny. It's not funny, but it was interesting because when I was going down there, some partner at the firm was like, "You sure you want to go down with all the things that are going on?" This individual didn't know kind of what I knew about the situation and who I was going to be working with. But at the same time, part of my personality likes a challenge. And I said, in certain times, there are two kinds of things that can happen. In disaster, great things can come or bad things can come. And I believed in who I was going down there to work with. And I was convinced that we could do great things. And so I was excited about the opportunity, nervous, yeah, because this was almost kind of unprecedented for the league at this point, right? But I was very excited about the opportunity. I had a lot of confidence with the people that I was working with. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done, not just at the organization, but kind of the tone that we've set for teams around the league and other teams within sports, and also kind of just cultures in general. So to be a part of a team who helped bring in more diversity, equity, and inclusion, to give more people opportunity internally, but also externally, means a lot. It means a lot to me to be able to do that work. And these 4 years have been met with a lot of different challenges and things that we've all gone through, right? I mean, with the hit of COVID, and then you have the racial and social justice issues that we all had to confront, even down to politics, which I won't touch. But there's a lot of divisiveness that was going on in the country and in the world. And one of the great things about sports is sports is oftentimes at the vanguard of those issues, right? We have the opportunity to put things out on display. We have the opportunity to try to bring groups together to try to raise issues so people can talk about it. And that's what we did. But make no mistake, it takes grit to be the first ones to talk about it. It takes grit and bravery to be able to raise those issues. And I honestly, the time spent, that has made it so worth it to have to be able to be a part of that and work with those individuals there and the organization that's willing to do that. I mean, I'm gonna brag on us for a second, but when all the teams and all the NBA teams decided they were gonna, give money to all these different causes and build programs, well, we were already doing that. It didn't take it didn't take tragedy in America for us to step up and do it. It was, we were doing the thing before it was the right thing, because it was the right thing.
That sounds like really good leadership over there at the Mavericks. So you hear this term in sports, right? A player's coach, right? Well, you're kind of like a player's GC, right? You played the game. A lot of guys you went to school with, college with, are in the league, et cetera. And kind of going to the point you mentioned about a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years, while you've been there. When you think about how players are being more active in their role in the community and things like that, your job is obviously to help protect the team and the brand. How do you balance your beliefs and your understanding of how players feel about wanting to be active and wanting to be involved and having a voice, and balancing that with the team's priorities and making sure that those things, don't clash?
So I should have gave this disclaimer before, but all of my thoughts are from Sekou. They don't represent the Mavericks organization. I love the position that I'm in because of the question that you just asked. I get the players. Like, I was one. They're my friends, right? I know who they are. And so I also have the experience of being on the corporate side. So if I ever do get a chance to interact with them, it's a good moment because I can help explain to them both sides, because they don't always see both sides. They just see their side. But I can help them see both sides. And so as an attorney also, you have to be very objective. And you know that you represent the company, you know that your personal beliefs don't come first. The good thing is that a lot of my personal beliefs align with the company's culture, so it makes it easy. The other thing is I always operate with a moral compass. And so if something ever got to extreme where it wouldn't feel like it was right on my compass, I would say something or do something about it, or I wouldn't do it, right? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with accepting that. And so when the players, they have an issue or a cause, fortunately, we support them, right? So there never really has been a complete clash. And it could be attributed to the players that we select and agree to play with us. I think it's also attributed to the culture that we keep, that we listen to the players, right? We want to see what they're interested in. We want to support them. And I think it's also just a times where players are growing more conscious of things that are going on, and they want to be better models, role models, and people involved in the community. So I think all those three things make my job easy when it comes to the question that you just asked about having any potential conflict. But I'll always keep it real with the players too if they ever ask a question. I'll say, I don't think you should do that.
Okay. So let's kind of talk about sports today, the NBA specifically, right? So sports, has grown immensely, right, across a number of different ways: media, content, finance, et cetera. Talk about, over your time, how you've seen the team grow, how you've seen the league grow, and where do you think is next for the league in terms of their greatest area of opportunity?
The last question that you just asked is the $100 billion question that we're all trying to figure out. We can keep that between us then. We don't have to tell them. We're all trying to figure out where the game is going to go next. And again, so I can only speak for myself. I won't speak for the organization on that part. But the game has grown immensely, and I think over the last 4 years, it's grown more just because of when there is adversity, there is opportunity. And so players have gotten more of a voice, but their voice has been to do good. The game has grown internationally, thanks in large part to Luka. Giannis has a part too, but Luka's bigger. Luka's bigger. So the international reach of the game has grown a lot, and is going to continue to grow. We've got the BAL in Africa. That was a new initiative that just started about a year or two ago, about 2 years ago. And so I think international and media and content consumption is where the game is going. We have a new generation of fans. There's just a younger generation that, they think and consume and go through life differently than the last several generations. And that's just not exclusive to sports or to basketball entertainment. That's just in life. And there's a lot of good things that these upcoming generations bring. And I think it's imperative for companies and industries to be able to adjust to what their needs are and where they are. They're more social. They share more. So it's like finding ways to engage with them in that way.
Okay. So I would be remiss if not saying that the younger generation, et cetera, we're on a college campus, right? NIL is a very big thing. And so I want your perspective as a former college athlete of how you think college athletes should be using this opportunity with NIL, with the exposure they now have. Sure, you know, getting monetary compensation is important, but being able to build a brand, et cetera. What's some advice that you would give today's college athlete?
If I said take advantage of the opportunity, that would be too easy, right? It would be too obvious. I'll give you one different, because no one's ever asked me that question before. But it's going to go back to when I was training at IMG academies and then went back to coach, right? There was one line that we used to always say is, be a pro. And what that meant was, how do you carry yourself? How do you prepare yourself? And how do you perform? And everything that you do is reflective of that. And so, while yes, you're not pro right now, technically, but you can act like one. So you have your own brand, right? You have your own personality, who you are as a person, how you're represented and seen in the community, on your team, and in the classroom. Take value in that and make sure that the best part of you is always presented and you put the best part of you forward. Be accountable. If you're going to agree to a deal, if you're going to say you're going to be somewhere, be there on time. You know, things happen, I get it, but don't be a person that's like looking for excuses. Even I was late today and I'm upset with myself, right? But I'm holding myself accountable because I was late. So be accountable. And then try to just learn about this experience. And what I mean by that is you're going to have a chance where people are going to possibly offer you money or opportunities. Learn about those transactions. Learn more. Like, what is involved in this? Who's involved in this? And this can give you an early insight maybe to what you might want to do in life. It might be a new career for you. Don't just see it as somebody's going to pay me to do this. So I go there, I show up, and that's it. Or somebody's going to pay me for my likeness and image. Try to learn the business. Try to learn, what roles other people play. Because that can give you an early start. Because, hey, you guys don't have a lot of time, right? You're not going to get a whole lot of internships. So you can use this opportunity that you're getting paid to learn a little bit more about kind of what goes on and where you could take your career path. I'm excited for you guys because you guys get paid. We couldn't even buy deodorant at the time. So I'm happy that you guys have this opportunity, but be a pro. Be a pro.
I like that. And that sounds rough, man. No deodorant. That's tough.
It's rough.
So for the non-athletes in the room who are college students who, we've all been at this place in life where we're trying to figure out what's next, feeling like, we maybe have missed it or, behind schedule. You've obviously gone through different transitions in your life, right? And at each point kind of asserted yourself and kind of elevated. Can you talk a little bit about what advice you would give the non-athletes in the room in terms of you'll have different things as you go through in life, but how to find yourself and be able to be successful where you're at?
You guys should be a pro too, the way you carry yourself. To anyone. So as I'm thinking through how to answer this question, a few things come to mind. Be accepting of opportunities as they come your way. Understand that your next move is not your last move. And so when things are presented to you, try to embrace them for what they are. Give your best when you're doing it. And then if something else comes up, be open-minded to that opportunity as well. My grandfather would say, if you're going to be a dishwasher, be the best dishwasher there is. So if your first job is, I don't care if you're a janitor, if that's your first job, or if you're working behind a desk as an analyst, be the best. Be the best that you can be. And understand that your career will take twists and turns. Life is going to throw a lot at you. It's going to move you around. Be willing to adjust, but don't give up. Hold on to what it is that you want to do, and just keep that in the back of your mind. Someone asked a question before, or it wasn't a question, but they mentioned having values. And one of the things that I told them, I said, I'm very excited that you have values. So one, I'll say all you guys have a set of values. I'll tell you mine. I designed a family crest a few years ago, and there are 4 values, right? The first one is loyalty. The second one is bravery. The third one is truth. And the fourth one, it means art or composition, but The reason why I have it there is because I want to make those 3 values my life's work. And so when I carry myself, I try to make sure I'm implementing those values everywhere I go. I mentioned that today when this young lady mentioned that she had values and things that she wanted to do in her career. It's important to know that your next job, you may not be able to do it the way you want to, or you may not see how you can deliver your values immediately through what it is that you're doing. But there can be moments when you can do that. And those are the moments you want to take advantage of. And at the same time, don't ever lose your values. Because there can be, as long as you maintain them, there might be an opportunity where your values meet your job, and that will be the best place for you. We can maximize and thrive and give the most of the world that you have. So for someone who, whether you're playing sports or not, I would say make sure you have a set of values. Live by those values. Don't give up on those values. Be flexible to opportunity as it comes to you. Know that your next move is not your last move, but always have a little faith.
Amen. Okay. In your profession, when you speak about values, and I love that, there's ever been a time where you've had to compromise your values, or you've had to think through if an opportunity is not right for you based on feeling you needed to compromise those values?
Never compromise our values. Absolutely not. I may give a perspective that it's a different kind of perspective that, like, I'm not compromising my values, and I'll make it known. But if the company that decides to go a certain direction, I'll let them know, trying to guide them back aligned, better on rails, so that it doesn't go too far any kind of way. But I won't compromise my values. So I'll speak up and I'll say something if I need to. I'll try and redirect. But at the same time, as an attorney, you represent the company, right? I don't take it so personal where it's there. But like I said before, I have a compass. And so if anything is ever that far off the compass, then I'll figure out what I need to do, whether that's remove myself or speak up and say something or put a halt to something.
Okay, that's fair. Do we have time for questions? I know we're going to wrap up soon. Okay. We'd love to have a couple of questions from the audience if anyone has any. You left me speechless, man.
So they want to know who won the first game between me and LeBron. Well, obviously it was LeBron. Probably one of the best moments, like, I remember playing with him is so LeBron was playing football at the time in high school, and we had the the fall basketball, like open gym pickup, and he comes in and we're going back and forth, and it's coming down to game point. And I remember this as clear as day. It's like the door over there, so the sunlight's coming in a little bit. He's coming down the left wing, coming across half court. He's on the left wing, and he drives hard left. And I'm trying my best to keep up with him, and I'm sliding, and I beat him to the spot. And then he takes this huge step with his right foot, pushes off his right foot, steps back from the block, I promise you, all the way back to behind the three-point line. And he's fading away, falling out of bounds, literally falling out of bounds, and nails a three for game point. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way that guy just made that shot, and there's no way anybody can ever stop him. I gave my all, gave my life on the line to block that shot, and he made it. It's just straight cash. And then, so at that moment, I knew, I was like, all right, this is rare air. But the fun part is, so check this out. This is how things come full circle, which is why I tell you guys, like, always accept opportunity and just let life, kind of come to you. The cool part was, I stopped, was like, what was that? Right? Because I had never seen this move, this step back before. Everybody knows now, but it wasn't so prevalent back then. He said, mind you, he's in high school. He said, I learned that from Michael Finley in Chicago. And so I was like, how cool is that now I'm back at the Mavs and working with Michael Finley the first time I meet him, right? And here's the move that Michael Finley taught LeBron James in high school to use.
So did you learn that move so you could do it next time, or no?
So actually, I did learn the move. Now, somebody on a coach on the team, later on in the season, he was showing me the move again. He was like, oh, you got to do this. So it's actually a great move. But yeah, I use it. I don't use it now, but I used to use it all the time.
Well, I respect your grit and determination for not quitting basketball at that moment, because I probably would have been defeated.
Well, so Brian wouldn't let you quit. That's one thing. That was one thing I learned about, like, so how to be a champion was playing with that team. That team wouldn't let you quit. We could be down by 10 in the fourth quarter with a few minutes, but there was this air and there was this like character around where it was like, we're not giving up. We are like, you're going to have to beat us. And we believe we can win this whole time. I mean, even down to the very last minute, there was almost a no choice. We will win. We will win. And so it's a different kind of mentality when you're around a champion who like won't let you just give up, won't let you slack off. And that's part about being a pro, right? It's like you carry yourself in a certain kind of way where it's like, no, I'm here to do a job. I'm going to execute, right? No matter what goes on around me, I will execute. And that's the kind of determination and grit you have to have.
That was a good one. Okay, I like that. Any other stories you wanna share with the audience about your time at St. Vincent St. Mary's or your high school career? Because the one thing that you didn't touch on was, I guess, was it your sophomore year when you were at the school in Michigan?
Yeah.
And how you were able to be the man on that team, and how that helped you feel. Talk a little bit about that.
So I went to a high school that wasn't well known for sports. In fact, it got a nice line in the movie 8 Mile. It was the butt of the joke in 8 Mile. But it was opportunity. It's one of those things, again, it's adjusting again. I went to a team that didn't have a whole lot of talent, so I got an opportunity to develop mine. And so we ended up having a great season, but it was a bit of a transition there. I feel very blessed in the opportunities I've had. I mean, a lot of my teammates have done great things, and so it's something about when you surround yourself with a good presence, they elevate you. So I would say the cast of characters you keep around you is very important. Your starting 5 for basketball is probably one of the most important 5 that you'll have in your life. So make sure those people that are around you, they have similar passions or dreams that you have to get to kind of where you want to get. I mean, I've got all kinds of stories. Like my brother just sent me a text message with a picture of the game where we played against Carmelo Anthony, which would be pretty fun. I haven't seen it, but it's it's Brown versus Carmelo in high school, so that's kind of cool. There's all kind of fun stuff, like the time I was on IMG's. So Serena Williams getting ready to retire. So it was a time at like an IMG Academy. I'm walking to the dining hall, and this little puppy pit bull runs past my feet. So I jump out the way, and next thing you know, this woman's chasing it, and that woman's Serena. So like, there's like cool little like small things that just kind of happen here and there. But I've had a very like rich experience.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna have a follow-up interview because I didn't know about the Serena thing, so we're gonna have to add some of those stories on. Well, you mentioned, having the right people around you. We want to thank you for gracing us with your presence. I hope that you guys found this to be a very, meaningful conversation.